The experiment begins. The alien laboratory was buzzing with energy. The sterile white walls and advanced machines hummed as a team of alien scientists gathered around their latest subject. A human, John, a volunteer from Earth, sat on the cold metal table, nerves bubbling beneath his calm exterior. He had agreed to this experiment, knowing it would change him, but not fully understanding the potential consequences. John had been selected by the Intergalactic Coalition for a groundbreaking procedure that promised to unlock the hidden potential in human biology. Aliens had long been curious about humanity's adaptability and resilience, traits that had allowed them to survive on a relatively harsh planet. Now, the aliens wanted to enhance those qualities, experimenting on humans to create a more powerful being. As the lead scientist, Dr. Villick approached John. He held a vial of glowing green liquid. This serum will bind with your DNA, amplifying your strength, speed, and endurance. You'll be stronger than you ever imagined, Dr. Villick assured him with a confident nod. But beneath that nod was a hint of uncertainty, one that John didn't miss. Are there risks? John asked, eyeing the vial. His voice was steady, but a flicker of doubt passed through his mind. Nothing substantial, Dr. Villick replied quickly, though John noticed a few of the other scientists exchanging uneasy glances. The serum had been tested on lesser species with varied results, but humans were unpredictable. You'll be fine, Dr. Villick insisted, injecting the serum into John's arm. At first, nothing happened. John let out a breath of relief. But then, a burning sensation spread through his veins, as though fire coursed through him. He clenched his fists, gritting his teeth against the pain. His muscles felt like they were expanding, stretching beyond what they were designed for. His skin prickled, and he gasped for air. The scientists hovered over him, observing every reaction. Dr. Villick watched closely, taking notes while John struggled to stay conscious. He could feel something changing inside him, as though his body was being torn apart and rebuilt at the same time. How do you feel? Dr. Villick asked calmly, but there was an urgency in his voice that betrayed his professional facade. It burns, John managed to say, clutching his arm where the serum had been injected. His body shuddered as the transformation continued. He could feel his muscles swelling, but the pain was unbearable. His mind raced. Was this supposed to happen, or had something gone wrong? Dr. Villick observed John's agony, but made no move to stop the process. He knew they were entering unknown territory. The serum was designed to push the limits of human biology, but no one knew what would happen if those limits were exceeded. Minutes passed like hours. John's breathing became ragged as his body adjusted to the changes. The burning sensation began to subside, replaced by a strange feeling of power. He looked down at his hands, which now seemed larger, stronger. His muscles felt denser, more capable. But something else lingered beneath the surface, an unsettling sensation, as if his body was on the edge of falling apart. What's happening to me? John gasped, looking up at Dr. Villick with wide eyes. He could feel the strength coursing through him, but also the fragility. It was as if his body was being held together by sheer force of will. Dr. Villick remained silent for a moment, observing John with a critical eye. The serum is working as intended. You're stronger now, faster. But the transformation is still stabilizing, he said carefully. We need to monitor you closely to ensure there are no complications. John didn't like the sound of that. Complications? Was he just a test subject to these aliens? A mere experiment for them to play with? The room grew quiet as the scientists continued their work, watching John's every move. He felt like a caged animal, trapped in this laboratory with no way out. His body was changing, and he had no control over it. As the hours dragged on, John began to feel the weight of the transformation settling in. His mind was clouded with doubts. What had he agreed to? Was this truly the path to becoming stronger, or was he merely a pawn in the aliens' grand experiment? One thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The experiment had only just begun. Unleashing power, John lay on the medical bed, his body trembling from the intense changes the serum was forcing upon him. His muscles twitched uncontrollably, and strange patterns of light glowed beneath his skin. Each breath felt like a struggle as the overwhelming sensation of raw power and instability surged within him. The scientists were no longer watching him with calm professionalism. They were frantically adjusting controls, reading data, and debating what was happening to the human subject. "What's happening to me?" John muttered again, this time with more fear than confusion. His body still ached from the transformation, but he could sense the strength coursing through his veins. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Dr. Vilek, the lead scientist, approached cautiously, speaking in a measured tone. "You're adjusting, but not in the way we predicted. Your body is surpassing the calculated limits of human capability. You're evolving faster than expected." John frowned, the words barely registering. His head was pounding, and his thoughts were muddled. He could feel the pressure building inside him, like something was about to burst. Suddenly, the ground shook as an emergency alarm blared through the facility. The lights flickered, and John's instincts kicked in. He jumped from the bed, surprising himself with how quickly his body responded. He moved with incredible speed, faster than any human should. "What's happening now?" John demanded, his voice sharper. Dr. Vilek's eyes widened. "There's an intrusion in the facility," he said hurriedly. "We need to secure the experiment." John didn't wait for more explanation. He charged towards the exit, his movements fluid and powerful. As he ran, he could feel his body adjusting to the newfound strength. But there was also a gnawing sense that something was wrong. His body was still unstable, like a coiled spring ready to snap at any moment. He burst into the corridor, finding chaos everywhere. The facility was under attack by unknown forces. Heavily armored alien soldiers were storming through, breaking into labs, and taking hostages. The invaders seemed organized and merciless, with advanced weapons that hummed with deadly energy. John clenched his fists, anger rising within him. Without thinking, he threw himself into the fray. His movements were almost instinctual as he tackled the first soldier he encountered. The alien was twice his size, but John's newfound strength overwhelmed him. He felt a sickening crunch as the alien's armor buckled under his fists. Another soldier raised a weapon towards John, but before the trigger could be pulled, John had closed the distance in a blur of speed, slamming the weapon out of the soldier's hand and sending the alien crashing to the ground. The invaders seemed stunned by John's power, but it was just as shocking to him. He had never felt anything like this before, this primal energy coursing through him, making him feel invincible. Yet there was a dark edge to it as well. His body was still unstable, and he could sense that his limits were being tested with every move he made. Dr. Vilek and his team of scientists appeared behind him, cautiously advancing as John took out alien after alien. They were in awe of what their experiment had produced, but also filled with uncertainty. "This isn't sustainable," one of the scientists whispered to Dr. Vilek. "He's burning through the serum too fast." Dr. Vilek nodded grimly. "We have to stabilize him before his body collapses." But John wasn't listening. He was caught in the heat of battle, pushing his body further with each strike. More invaders poured into the facility, but none could match John's speed or strength. Yet even as he fought, a part of him knew this couldn't last. He was running on borrowed time. As the last of the invaders were defeated, John finally stopped, breathing heavily. His vision blurred for a moment, and he staggered back, feeling a sharp pain in his chest. The power was still there, but it was starting to fracture. His body was breaking down from the strain. "We need to get you back to the lab," Dr. Vilek urged, rushing forward. "We need to stabilize you, or you'll tear yourself apart." John didn't argue. He could feel the tension in his body, like a dam ready to burst. He allowed the scientists to guide him back towards the medical bay, his mind racing with everything that had happened. He had been given extraordinary power, but at what cost? As they reached the lab, Dr. Villick quickly prepared another round of stabilizing agents, hoping it wasn't too late to save John from the side effects of the serum. John lay back on the table, his breath shallow as he felt his body teeter on the edge of collapse. "I'm not sure if we can reverse this," Dr. Villick murmured, injecting a new concoction into John's bloodstream. "But we'll try." John's vision darkened as the new serum flowed through him, hoping that whatever was happening inside him could be controlled before it consumed him entirely. "You said the hidden consequences." As the stabilizing serum coursed through John's veins, his body finally calmed, though a dull ache remained. He lay on the table, his thoughts muddled with fear, power, and uncertainty. The lab was quieter now, the threat of invaders temporarily gone. But inside John, a far greater battle was unfolding. Dr. Villick and his team worked tirelessly, scanning and monitoring John's vitals. They looked at the readouts with concern. "His body is still unstable," said Dr. Caro, one of Villick's assistants. "The serum didn't just enhance his physical capabilities. It's changing him at a cellular level." John overheard the conversation, his heart racing with fear. "What does that mean?" he asked, struggling to sit up. Dr. Villick turned to him, his expression grim. "It means the power you experienced in the fight might not be temporary. Your body is adapting faster than expected. But it's also at risk. If we can't stabilize you soon, the transformation could have long-term consequences, ones we don't fully understand." John frowned. "What kind of consequences?" "We don't know yet," Villick admitted. "You've become something new, something beyond human. But this change could damage your internal organs, your brain. It's unpredictable." John looked down at his hands, which still held traces of the glowing energy that had surged through him earlier. He felt different, stronger, faster, but at what cost? Was he still the same person, or had the serum turned him into something monstrous? His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alarm. The invasion wasn't over. An automated voice announced, "Intruders detected. Reinforcements inbound." John gritted his teeth, the adrenaline kicking in again. He didn't have time to think about the consequences now. He had to fight. Pushing through the pain, John stood up. "Whatever happens to me, I'm not going to let them destroy this place." Dr. Villick grabbed his arm. "John, you can't keep pushing yourself. Your body." "I don't care," John interrupted. "We don't have a choice." The scientists looked at him, conflicted. They knew John's decision could lead to further instability in his condition, but they also knew they needed him if they were going to survive. Dr. Caro hurriedly handed John a device, a weapon enhanced with alien technology. "This should help," she said. John accepted it with a nod. "Let's finish this." With the weight of his transformation pressing down on him, John charged back into the fray. The facility's doors were breached once again, and alien soldiers poured in, ready to overwhelm the defenders. But John moved faster than before, his mind focused on the battle. Each strike was precise, every movement efficient. His body reacted instinctively to danger, dodging energy blasts and countering with strength no human should possess. The serum had turned him into a force of nature. But the pain grew with each minute of combat. His body was burning up from the inside. The energy coursing through him was powerful, but it was also tearing him apart. He felt like a candle burning too brightly, strong, yet fading fast. Dr. Villick watched in awe and horror. "We need to find a way to stabilize him before it's too late," he whispered. "He can't keep this up." But there was no time for adjustments. The invaders kept coming, their numbers overwhelming the defenses. John fought with every ounce of strength he had, but he could feel his body reaching its limits. Finally, with one last surge of power, John took down the final wave of soldiers. He stood in the middle of the destruction, breathing heavily. The invaders were defeated, but at a cost. John collapsed to his knees, his body trembling uncontrollably. The serum had given him unimaginable strength, but it had also pushed him to the brink. Dr. Villick and his team rushed to his side. administering emergency treatments. They worked frantically to stabilize him, unsure if they could reverse the damage. As John drifted into unconsciousness, one thought echoed in high. The rising conflict. John woke up in a medical chamber, his body strapped with machines. His mind was foggy, and the pain had dulled but was still present. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he noticed Dr. Vilek standing over him. "John," Vilek said softly, "you've been out for 2 days. We managed to stabilize you, but the serum's effects are still evolving. We don't know how much time you have before the changes become irreversible." John clenched his fists, feeling a strange energy inside him. "What do you mean, evolving?" "The serum continues to alter your DNA," Vilek explained. "You're no longer entirely human. Your body is adapting in ways we never anticipated, but it's also rejecting the changes. You're in a constant state of flux." John sat up, his muscles aching. "What do I need to do?" Vilek hesitated. "There's no simple solution. We need to gather more data. But the situation outside is deteriorating. The aliens haven't stopped their assault. They know what we've done to you, and they're not going to give up until they either capture or kill you." John's mind raced. He had become the key to the war, a living weapon, but also a ticking time bomb. The aliens had seen his power and feared him. But his own body was turning against him, and his time was running out. A sudden alarm blared throughout the facility, jolting both John and Vilek. The invaders had returned, but this time, they weren't just sending soldiers, they were bringing in something far more dangerous. Vilek's expression hardened. "They've unleashed their elite force. If they reach us." John stood, despite the protests from his still healing body. "I'm not going to let them win." Vilek rushed to his side, pleading, "John, you're not ready. If you push yourself now, you could lose control completely." John looked at the doctor with determination. "It doesn't matter. If I don't stop them, they'll destroy everything." With that, John left the medical chamber, his steps heavy but purposeful. The facility was in chaos, with soldiers and scientists running to defensive positions. John made his way to the front lines, where the alien elite force had breached the outer walls. As he prepared to engage, he felt the energy inside him surge again, stronger than ever before. His vision sharpened, his reflexes quickened, and his strength doubled. But with every surge of power, a sharp pain followed. His body was pushing itself to its limits, and the serum's effects were becoming more unstable. The alien elite force was unlike anything John had faced before. They were faster, more skilled, and heavily armed. But John fought with a ferocity that even they couldn't match. He moved like a blur, taking down enemies with precision and brute strength. But as the battle raged on, John's condition worsened. His movements became erratic, his vision blurred, and his mind clouded with pain. He was losing control of his own body. Just as he was about to collapse, reinforcements arrived. The remaining human forces had managed to regroup, and with John's help, they were able to push back the alien elite force. But John knew this was only a temporary victory. The changes in his body were accelerating, and he was running out of time. He had become more than just a soldier. He was a symbol of hope for humanity. But how long could he hold on before he lost himself completely? As the dust settled, John looked at Vilek, who had joined him on the battlefield. "We have to find a cure," John said, his voice trained. "Before it's too late." Vilek nodded, determination in his eyes. "We'll find a way. But we need to act fast. The aliens won't stop, and neither will the changes inside you." John knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he was ready. He would fight until the end, no matter the cost. The ultimate test. John's mind was a storm of chaos as his body underwent further changes. His physical abilities were reaching superhuman levels, but so was the internal turmoil. The serum's influence was not just affecting his strength. It was altering his very essence, reshaping his humanity into something alien. And with each passing hour, He was losing more of himself. Dr. Villick watched helplessly from the sidelines, monitoring John's vital signs. Despite his earlier optimism, he knew they were running out of options. The alien serum was pushing John towards a breaking point. Soon, it would be too late to reverse its effects. But there was no time to rest. A new threat loomed on the horizon. The alien invaders had developed a new weapon, one specifically designed to target John's altered biology. The humans had intercepted a message indicating that the aliens planned to unleash this weapon during their next assault. John, aware of this, volunteered to lead the defense against the coming attack. "If they want to target me, then I'll make sure I'm the one standing in their way," he said, resolute. His voice was steady, but Villick could see the strain in his eyes, the tension of fighting against both the enemy and the monster he was becoming. The alien weapon, known only as the Disruptor, was a device capable of destabilizing the very energy coursing through John's body. It had been engineered to neutralize the serum's effects, but there was a catch. The Disruptor could also tear him apart from within if activated too close to him. As the battle drew closer, John and the human forces prepared for what could be their last stand. The air was thick with tension as the alien ships approached, and the Disruptor hummed ominously in the distance. When the attack began, John threw himself into the heart of the fight. His enhanced abilities allowed him to overpower the alien soldiers with ease, but he felt the Disruptor's effects with every step he took. His strength waned, his body faltering as the energy within him became more unstable. Villick, who had joined John on the battlefield despite the danger, shouted over the noise of battle, "You need to retreat, John. The Disruptor will kill you." John, gritting his teeth through the pain, shook his head. "I'm not leaving. If I go down, I'm taking them with me." But just as John was about to engage the core group of alien elites protecting the Disruptor, something changed. He felt a surge of power unlike anything before, a final burst of strength, but along with it, a sharp, searing pain. His body was tearing itself apart, the serum's energy spiraling out of control. Villick ran towards him, desperately trying to reach him before it was too late. "John, you can't keep going like this. You'll destroy yourself." John barely heard him as his vision blurred. But despite the agony, he kept moving, driven by sheer willpower. He reached the core of the alien force, his body glowing with raw energy. The aliens activated the Disruptor, aiming to neutralize him once and for all. But instead of falling, John pushed past the pain and directed the energy outward. In a blinding flash, he released everything he had, unleashing a wave of destruction that obliterated the Disruptor and the alien forces surrounding it. When the dust settled, John stood in the center of the battlefield, panting and barely able to stand. The serum had taken its toll. His body was ravaged, and his mind was a blur of pain. But the immediate threat had been neutralized. As Villick reached him, John collapsed, his body finally giving in to the strain. "We won, didn't we?" he whispered, barely conscious. Villick nodded, tears in his eyes. "We won, John. But we need to find a way to save you." John smiled weakly, his vision fading. "I'll be fine, just need to rest." But as John slipped into unconsciousness, Villick knew the battle to save his life had only just begun. Time was running out, and they had to find a solution before the serum destroyed what little humanity John had left. The race against time. As John lay unconscious, the battle around him faded into a memory. Villick knelt beside him, his heart heavy with worry. They had won the fight, but John's condition was critical. The alien serum was rapidly depleting his humanity, and if they didn't act fast, he would be lost forever. Villick quickly gathered a team of scientists and medics. They rushed John back to the base, where they had advanced technology at their disposal. Villick knew they had to stabilize John's condition before it was too late. In the lab, the atmosphere was tense. The scientists connected John to various machines, monitoring his vital signs and energy levels. Villick paced back and forth, anxiously glancing at the screens. He felt helpless, but he knew they had to try. One of the scientists, Dr. Lena, looked up from her monitor. "We can administer a counter serum to neutralize the effects of the alien serum. But we have to do it carefully. Any mistake could be catastrophic." Vilek nodded, his determination unwavering. "Do it. We can't let him slip away." As they prepared the counter serum, the room was filled with tension. Vilek watched closely, praying for success. They injected John with the serum, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, alarms blared as John's body reacted violently. "No, no, no," Vilek shouted, his heart racing. "Stabilize him." The team worked quickly, adjusting the machines and monitoring John's vitals. Vilek focused on John's face, willing him to pull through. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the alarms ceased, and John's breathing steadied. "Is he?" Vilek whispered. Dr. Lena sighed with relief. "He's stabilized, but we need to keep monitoring him. The effects of the alien serum are still present, but for now, he's safe." Vilek felt a wave of relief wash over him. They had bought John some time, but he knew the real battle was far from over. The alien forces would not rest, and they needed John back on his feet to defend against the next attack. Days passed, and John slowly regained consciousness. He blinked, disoriented, and looked around the lab. Vilek rushed to his side. "You're awake. How do you feel?" John tried to sit up but winced in pain. "Like I've been run over by a freight train," he muttered. "What happened?" "You saved us, John. But the serum, it's still affecting you. We're working on a solution." Vilek's voice was steady, but he could see the worry in John's eyes. "Is it too late for me?" John asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "No. We've stabilized you, but we need to keep fighting," Vilek insisted. "The aliens won't give up. You're our best hope." John took a deep breath, the determination in his eyes returning. "Then I'll fight, whatever it takes." As he slowly got to his feet, Vilek could see the fire reigniting within him. But the lingering effects of the serum were evident. John's movements were slow, his body still recovering from the ordeal. "Let's strategize," John said, looking at the screens filled with alien intel. "We need to find a way to end this once and for all." Vilek nodded. "We've intercepted their communications. They're planning another assault soon, but this time, we have the element of surprise." As they worked late into the night, piecing together a plan, Vilek felt a flicker of hope. With John back in action, they could turn the tide against the aliens. But deep down, he knew the battle was not just against the invaders. It was also a fight for John's humanity. Together, they would face whatever came next, determined to reclaim not just their planet, but also the man who would become a symbol of hope for humanity. The real war was just beginning, and they would do everything in their power to win it. "You said, the final showdown." With their plan set, John and Vilek prepared for the final confrontation. They gathered their allies, a mix of humans and friendly alien forces, ready to take the fight to the enemy. The atmosphere was tense, but a sense of unity prevailed among them. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for a future. As they approached the alien stronghold, Vilek briefed everyone on the strategy. "We'll create a diversion at the front while a small team, led by John and me, sneaks in from the back. Our goal is to disable their command center and disrupt their communication." John felt the weight of the mission on his shoulders, but he knew this was their chance. He looked at his team, determination burning in their eyes. "Let's show them what humanity can do." As they launched their attack, explosions rocked the alien base. Vilek and John led their team through the chaos, moving swiftly and quietly. They encountered resistance, but John, fueled by adrenaline and newfound strength, took down enemies with ease. His experience with the alien serum had transformed him into a formidable fighter. They reached the command center, where the alien leaders were gathered. The atmosphere was charged with tension as John burst through the door, catching them off guard. "This ends now," he shouted, brandishing his weapon. The aliens looked stunned, but then they quickly rallied, weapons drawn. The fight erupted, and chaos filled the room. John fought valiantly, using his enhanced abilities to dodge attacks and strike back. As the battle raged, Vilek noticed a control panel in the corner. "If we take out their main systems, we can turn the tide," he shouted to John. John nodded, but he was surrounded. With a surge of energy, he pushed through the aliens and made his way to the panel. He quickly began disabling their systems, while Vilek covered him. The alien leaders realized they were losing ground. In a desperate attempt to regain control, they launched a final assault. But John was ready. Just as they charged, he activated the panel, sending a shockwave through the command center. The aliens staggered, confusion evident on their faces. "What have you done?" one of them shouted. John smirked. "I've just sealed your fate." With their systems failing, the aliens began to retreat. Vilek and John took advantage of the chaos, pushing forward until the last alien leader fell. As the dust settled, the team stood victorious. They had dealt a significant blow to the alien forces, but John felt a strange emptiness inside. He had won, yet the lingering effects of the serum still haunted him. He could feel the remnants of his humanity slipping away. Vilek approached him, concern in his eyes. "We did it, John. But are you okay?" John nodded, forcing a smile. "I'll be fine. We've achieved something incredible here." But deep down, he knew the battle for his humanity was far from over. The team celebrated their victory, but John's mind was elsewhere. He realized that while they had won this battle, the war was ongoing. The alien threat was still present, and they would need to remain vigilant. As they returned home, John vowed to continue fighting, not just for Earth, but for the humanity that he feared was slipping away. He would seek a way to reclaim his true self, no matter the cost. Together with Vilek and their allies, they would ensure that humanity remained unstoppable, not just as warriors, but as a beacon of hope in the galaxy.